My name is Jillian Berkema, and I am the Director of Annual Giving, and I'm a member of the Development and Alumni Relations Office. And I'm really excited this evening to be joined by JC Lopez, who is the Vice President of Student Affairs, and he's just going to be hanging out and an extra resource for us this evening if any questions arise that he can support. And then I'm really excited to have two members of our parents, or three members of our Parents and Families Leadership Council joining us this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan to introduce herself, and then she can pass it on to Robin and John, our other council members.
Oh, great. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's so exciting to see all the places where people are from. Someone just logged in saying they're coming from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I can't remember how to say welcome in Portuguese, but I'll work on that. But welcome everybody for being here. This, I think, is a great touch that Grinnell has added with students and parents preparing to enter for this, the class of 2029. Did I get that right? That's great. I'm Susan Anderson. My husband is Doug Schulman. We live in New York City, and our son Ben is a rising senior. He's a sociology major, and he's one of the captains of the Ultimate Frisbee team. So Robin, who has very illustrious connections to Grinnell, why don't you go?
Yeah, we're deeply entrenched in Grinnell. So I'm class of 1995, and my husband Todd is class of 1996. We came to Iowa City after we graduated, and we have not left, and have raised our family here. We have a son who is living in Philadelphia now, but was class of 2023 and majored in English and sociology and swam as his primary extracurricular. And then we have a son, Julian, who's class of 2028, no major yet. He jokes it's underwater basket weaving, so I just told him you take a class in it before you major in it. He likes to bike. He plays ultimate. He bikes with the local gravel group, and he checks out a lot of different things on campus because that's the kind of kid he is.
And John?
Hi, everybody. My name is John Horn. My son, Henry, is a rising senior. We live in Pasadena, California. He's home interning for the summer, allegedly either getting school credit or paid or some combination thereof. He is our youngest. Our oldest went to Wake Forest and graduated 3 years ago. I'm also a member of the advisory council. Our son is the incoming sports editor of the student newspaper, the Scarlet and Black. He went to Grinnell with the intention of playing on the golf team, quickly lost interest in playing golf, although there's a very nice course on the corner of campus if you've visited, and spends a lot of his time now working on the paper. He also studied abroad. His first semester of his junior year, he went to Copenhagen, and it was life-changing for him. So when you get to that point in your child's college life, I cannot recommend study abroad highly enough. He did not go through the Grinnell program, but through a consortium of other schools that Grinnell is a part of. So welcome. And I also have probably spoken to some of you either on the phone or via email with random tips that I offer about places to stay and eat, and books to listen to on your drive to Grinnell.
Awesome. Okay, Jillian, do you want to get us going?
Yeah, so how the format will work this evening, if any of you have questions for our three parents who have joined us this evening, you are welcome to enter them into the chat, and I will be monitoring that. But we do have one question to kick off our session this evening, and that is Susan, John, and Robin, will you share with us, is it easy to make friends? And what was your students' experience in their first semester with making friends and finding their people?
Robin, do you
go
want to actually, I was thinking maybe, because you had two children and they
Mhm.
are a little bit different, I think. I mean, similar and different or whatever. So maybe that might be helpful to a lot of people here. And then John.
Yeah. I mean, I can certainly speak to what what I was able to observe or hear about their experiences. And I'll say that both of my sons, both the one who graduated and the one who's going into his second year, are reasonably outgoing individuals. I wouldn't say they're like super gregarious, but like, I mean, they generally have made friends easily over the course of their lifetime, which obviously, like, there's going to be a whole spectrum of experiences depending on what you come in as a background. But what I love about Grinnell is, like, no matter what you're like, and whether or not you're an introvert or an extrovert or whatever it is you're into, there you'll find your people at Grinnell. My oldest son came to Grinnell from Iowa City, which it's not uncommon for there to be other Iowans who because you met them somewhere, or even other people from your high school and your class. There were 5 students. One of whom actually ended up living on his floor his first year, and then somebody that he had like swam with at other swim meets became like basically his closest friend. They're from the Quad Cities in Iowa, for those Iowans in the chat. And I mean, they're still really close friends. They traveled abroad together. And so, I think there was like a nice combination of people he already knew. And then I think being a member of something, whatever it is, can really make that so easy. So the swim team really was a fantastic community for him. Our son Julian plays ultimate, but he is different in that he didn't have like, sort of this like home. And there were fewer people coming to Grinnell from Iowa City his year. So there wasn't quite that same level of like, built in, but like he still met people on his floor. And there was, another guy in his dorm that he met at the new student orientation who was like, hey, I go to these gravel rides. And so Julian went to the gravel rides, and now we actually drove over to Grinnell this summer to have him compete in one of Grinnell's gravel events over the summer. So that's been fun for him. He's met people just from all over. They meet new students at the new student orientation. And I've heard a lot of different names over the course of the year. And the person he thought he was going to room with then decided to take sort of a personal gap semester. So then he's rooming with somebody else that he met from something else. So he has kind of these pockets of friends. And so I think one of my main messages is like, students can meet each other in all sorts of places, and can have, all sorts of different people. But I think there's so much going on at Grinnell, even though it's not huge. And it's, I think, really welcoming in that way.
I have a slightly tougher story. Kids who are in my son's class generally were COVID high schoolers, so they didn't get to do much in their summers when they're in high school. And I think that was very difficult for our son. So when we dropped him off, he had a really tough time adjusting to being in Iowa or being anywhere for that matter, because he hadn't really been away from his family all through high school. So adapting to college was difficult for him. And it meant that we went back and visited a couple extra times in the first semester. He also took advantage of some of Grinnell's counseling services, which I think were helpful. I think he found, because he was, briefly on the golf team, a good group of friends through the golf team. And then I think what he found is like his best friend he met in his first year seminar, and they have remained best friends to this day. They just ended up sitting next to each other and hit it off immediately. I think he also has met some people through cycling. There are various iterations of cycling clubs at Grinnell, and just people who like to ride bikes. There's a bike share program. And I think, I mean, it sounds obvious, but it wasn't necessarily obvious to him at the time. Get out of your dorm room, go to events, go to games. Not that any Grinnell team is going to really impress you that much outside of maybe basketball because of the way they play. I just, find a club or a group that you're interested in, go out to events and do whatever you can to get out of your dorm room. Henry found his people. It took a while, but they were there. It just takes some effort on the students' part, especially, if they're not by nature outgoing. Henry's a little shy, but once he gets going, is incredibly personable. So it was an adjustment, but I'd say he has a great group of friends now and can't wait to get back to school.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than it might otherwise, but like John is saying, the opportunity to build deep friendships, let's say across organizations and on your dorm floor, as Robin was saying, I think those are all like super key things. We had moved, our son Ben has a twin sister Eve, and we moved from Washington, D.C. to New York City when they were starting 6th grade. And it was a difficult transition for both of them. And I think my son's kind of takeaway with that and going to college, he said, Robin and John and Jillian have already heard this or whatever. He said, like, I'm going to take this on like running for mayor. Like, I'm gonna have my hand out to say hello to everybody. I'm gonna just keep a totally open mind. And I'm just going to be out there just basically pressing the flesh. There's a big mayoral race in New York right now. So that's, pretty somewhat appropriate here, whatever. So, and I think that really helped him because he, I think similar to Henry, tends to be a little bit less outgoing. But so he really looked at it as like, this is good, transitioning to school it's a job, and the job is going to go easier if you go into it with the view of being out there and putting yourself out there and meeting people. And I can't remember where I read this, I don't know if it's related to Grinnell or another school, is there will be like transitional friends or temporary friends through this process. Some of those people end up becoming lifelong friends. But it's not uncommon to sort of connect with some people, click right off in the beginning, but maybe by that spring semester, you're still like friendly, but moving on to others. So there is going to be fluidity. And if they can just try as much as possible about just being out there and meeting people, will help them a lot. And I put in the chat, we bought a door jamb so Ben could have his door open. I know that's not a permanent thing that they can do, but at least during those move-in days and stuff like that, it's a lot, I think, more welcoming to walk onto the floor and being able to look into rooms as opposed to seeing a bunch of doors that are closed. So that's like tip 1 on packing.
All right, great. Thank you. So we have a question from Antonio. And his question is, hi, my daughter is going to join the volleyball team at Grinnell, and we're really excited about it. I was wondering if any of you could share how your children have experienced being part of a varsity team. Has it been a positive experience for them? Were they able to balance their academic workload with their athletic commitments? I think that is a really wonderful question. So Robin, I know you have had children in athletics, so do you want to start off answering this question?
Yeah, I want to say that I think it can probably vary sport to sport, but my son swam all 4 years at Grinnell. I know, and there's been a change of coach. And so I know that like some of the practice hours are maybe a little bit different than he was there. So I can only speak to the experience when he was there. But he really appreciated that they didn't have a lot of doubles at the time, because he like when he was in high school, he swam doubles, and that made things very challenging. But also I think, his perspective on swimming changed from something that was super competitive to something that was really for fun. And I think you're going to see the full range on any athletic team. So, I mean, there were, D3 NCAA like champs, or like, people who were super competitive that were on the team. And then he decided that he wasn't going to work as hard on his swimming, and he was one of the slower people on the team, but that didn't mean he wasn't a valued member. He was absolutely part of that community. And I think, his experience was absolutely that his coach, Aaron Hurley, supported the idea of the student athlete with the emphasis on student. So I think there can be a wide range depending on what their athletic goals are and what the team is, and how long they're in season or how many sports they play. But I would say in general, the emphasis is on student first, athlete second.
Yeah,
and in general, really good communities.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, my son went there to play golf, and really the summer before he was going to start, lost interest, and toyed around with a team, and then decided it wasn't for him. And I think it's important to remember that a kid can lose interest in a sport, and it doesn't matter. Henry, struggled for a little bit in saying, well, I'm at Grinnell because I wanted to play golf, but once he realized that it didn't really matter, he's not a Division I scholarship athlete, it really was liberating. So that once he gave up, and his coach was incredibly supportive, Brian Jaworski was incredibly supportive of Henry's change of mind. I'm sure he was disappointed, but Henry realized that that wasn't what he wanted to do, and so he dropped it. And if your kid is an athlete and likes what they're doing, great. And if they don't like what they're doing, there's no reason why they have to continue. So I would just be open to the idea of having a conversation. If it's clear your kid, for whatever reason, isn't interested in doing that sport, they don't have to, and they can do something else instead.
So our son, Ben, who's on the Ultimate Frisbee team, I would say one thing about it is I think it helps him organize his time. So they have like 3 practices during the week, 1 practice on the weekend, which is less than some of well, probably much less than all the other varsity teams or whatever. But he knows, like, he has his schedule like pretty much planned out at the start of the semester of how he's going to pace himself, and then he adjusts it as needed. But having activity, 3 or 4 times a week definitely helps him. Look, I was a work study student in college, and that definitely helped me plan my studying. So I think it can be helpful, and I think it really comes down to the student to figure out how they're working that balance.
Excellent. All right. Another question that has come up is Parents Weekend. Anything to know? Anything you want to share about Parents Weekend or what you've experienced?
I'll go first.
Great, thanks.
Show up as soon as they will post invitations to class visits, and there's not a lot. Get there when they put them out and go. It's been truly one of the most rewarding parts about visiting is you get to go sit in on a class, and there might be 3 or 4 seats for some of the classes. I do it every time. I've never been in a bad class, and I have to be careful because I end up asking too many questions, and the students are in there trying to do their studies. But I can't recommend the classroom visits enough. It's really a great part of the program.
Yeah, so I think like right off when registration starts, which I usually think is in the Rosen Field Center. Julian, I think that's where the parent registration happens. That's where you sign up. So if you can be there, like if it says it's doors opening at 8, be there because the classes go quickly. I would say that one thing we've done is try to always do something that's not necessarily something our son would do, because he's not necessarily in drama or the arts. So always try to see a performance, whether it's something in the black box or if there's a student art show or things like that. So you really sort of get the breadth of the school, not just, I mean, some people on here, your kids are going to be those Renaissance kids. It sounds like Julian Kopelman is a little bit that way, sort of got their sort of fingers in everything. Um, but if your kid isn't necessarily that way, it's just so lovely to see the depth and the breadth of the college by doing that stuff.
I'll just add, my experience. I've gone to a lot of family weekends over the years, but my experience is very different because we're commuting from Iowa City. So one, I'll tell you that if Grinnell is full, it is possible to commute from Iowa City. It's lovely here, and you could come do some fun things and see, one of the gems of Iowa. But also, I think my favorite things have been like our parent panel and just going and like, if your kid will let you, like sort of like hang out with them and their, their new friends that they're sort of making and their parents. And like, I just love meeting people. So I'm just like meeting all these parents, and I just like enjoy hanging out at meals or at the like, or appetizers. And things like that, because it's just fun to get to meet all of the different people that come to Grinnell, because my experience of it was like leaving Iowa without leaving Iowa, and every time I get to go back to visit my kids, it's that way too, because we get to meet people from all over. It's really awesome.
And we always make a point of going to Des Moines, going out to dinner, taking one of Henry's friends. There's some great restaurants in Des Moines. So I'd say if the schedule permits, we have always made a trip to Des Moines. Harbinger's a great restaurant. There are a couple other really good places there. So, and it's about 45-50-minute drive, especially if you go on the east side of town, which is, to my mind, the better part of Des Moines. So always try and make a road trip, or we go to Rube's Steakhouse in Montour, which I've told other people you must check out. It's a grill your own steak place that is very Midwest. The grill is about the size of most people's kitchens, and you cook your own steak that's probably, hours old, and it's a great outing. It's called Rube's, and it's in Montour, and I think every parents' weekend we have gone there as well.
Field trip.
All right. So the next question is related to really not identifying or committing to any type of campus activities until the student arrives on campus. Would you say that was a common route that your students took before or after arriving to Grinnell? Did they decide once they were on campus what they wanted to participate in?
Well, our son knew that he was going to play in the ultimate team, but I guess probably, I mean, he bikes in New York City, but like the opportunities to bike around Grinnell, people aren't aware. There's like a huge, I think the oldest like bike tour in the country is going on in Iowa this weekend, and my son is one of the volunteers on it. So like both just John and Robin were saying, I think a lot of kids who already bike might get more into that, or if they don't bike, might pick that up, because it's just also a way to like get off campus and get around and see things. And the cornfields, I mean, look, I'm one generation off the farm. I still find them like incredibly beautiful. And it's like these beautiful like rolling hills, and it really, any time of year, it's lovely.
I think my advice would be let your kid decide, and wait till they get there. I think it's very easy, and I'm guilty of this, of kind of projecting what my wife and I would have wanted to do when we were in college. When my younger son signed up for his first year seminar, it was really his older brother's first pick, not his. And I think that was a mistake. So I would just err to the side of letting your kid do what he, she, or they prefer, because I think it's very easy to make suggestions that are wrong.
Great. All right, I'm going to ask a question that John mentioned when we were planning for our conversation, and this is related to Thanksgiving. Many parents ask, when can my child come home for Thanksgiving break if that is an option? So, John, do you want to take the lead on answering how to prepare for your child to come home for Thanksgiving break?
So this is a ask forgiveness, not permission question, I think. It really depends on whether or not your child has Wednesday classes, and it also varies from teacher to teacher. So our son's first year, it was very important that he got home. And so there was no debate. I think he did have a Wednesday class, but I think he really wanted to come home. He wanted him home. It is tricky depending on class schedules and teachers. I think outside of the year he was studying abroad, our son has come home every Thanksgiving. Whether or not that meant he didn't have a class on Wednesday, I'm not going to answer right now, but I think you have to trust your child to make the right decision. It really, for people in Los Angeles or on the West Coast, it is not an easy trip. It's a 2-flight trip generally. So you do have to leave Wednesday morning, and you do have to miss school Wednesday or come out Tuesday night. So I think it's a judgment call, and it's not easy.
Yeah, I agree with John. I think it's a judgment call. Our son has either come home or gone to grandparents the last 3 Thanksgivings, but he has almost always had something on Wednesday that he felt he needed to attend. So usually he didn't leave till like the late afternoon flight or an evening flight. There are some direct flights to New York, some are connections. And then he usually travels back on Sunday morning to return to Grinnell. But there are a number of students who do not go home. A number of students. It is not. A lot of people leave, but the campus is not absolutely empty by any stretch.
And I'll just make a plug that Chef Turley here on campus is amazing, and he always, I should say, and his staff, they always prepare a wonderful Thanksgiving meal for those who are still on campus. So just want to reiterate that there are still a lot of students who are on campus during Thanksgiving break. Here's another family weekend question. Is it fun for younger siblings to attend?
Well, I have twins, so they're my first, middle, and last. And so, and neither one is actually, our son last year went to our daughter's parents' weekend. It's not necessarily geared towards younger siblings, but if they're in that like framework of looking at schools, that can be helpful. And I have seen a ton of younger siblings at parents' weekend. Like we usually do a parents and family leadership committee panel, one on Friday, and there have been younger siblings, that parents have brought to those panels. Or sometimes you'll see, the sibling, the Grinnell student walking around with the younger sibling.
Our older son went to Wake Forest, so our current Grinnell student does not have a younger sibling, but he went to Wake Forest for their family weekends and enjoyed it a lot. I mean, our kids are very close, so it worked out very nicely. They like hanging out, and they went off and did their thing. And it also gave Henry, our younger son, a taste of college life. So, I think if the younger sibling is, 10 to 12, they might be a little young for that, but we've always looked at those opportunities as family weekends, not just parents' weekends.
I was going to say, they can certainly find things to do, and we're lucky in that in that regard. Like we come and go, and so we bring the boys are all close, and we bring them to some things and not to others, and they've grown up going to and from stuff at Grinnell, so they have their things that they like to do. They know where they like to go bike riding. They know what restaurants they like to go to, so they know how to have fun, because fun can be had and it can be interesting for them.
Great. We have a couple more questions related to family weekend, and since that's going to be quickly approaching, the first one is, do you know if many parents stay in the Des Moines area versus Grinnell during Parents Weekend?
We have always stayed in Grinnell, either at a Hotel Grinnell, which books immediately. So whenever you find out the next Parents Weekend, and it's one advantage of being on the family council, we sometimes get a little inside information of when that might be. There are 3 hotels outside of town. They're not great, but they're cheap. We have always stayed in Grinnell, but we certainly know people who've stayed in Des Moines, and it's not that far. But I think for me, it's better to stay at the Comfort or Quality Inn than drive in from Des Moines. But the Hotel Grinnell is great, ain't cheap, and it's sometimes sold out.
I think there's also a couple bed and breakfast and Airbnb options. We've never gone that route, but I know people who have.
Great. And then one more family weekend question. Do you recommend attending Friday through Sunday?
Yes.
Yes.
We just made our plane reservations, and we come out, I think we come out Thursday because it takes a day to get there. We fly out Thursday night, so we're there Friday morning, and we fly back Sunday. But absolutely, we're there for the whole 3. Sunday is kind of a quiet day, but we're there all day Friday and all day Saturday.
Sometimes what we've done is like take our son and friends, like, some on Friday night and some on Saturday night for dinner. Sunday, I think I've attended services maybe once or twice. But usually Sunday we head back to New York.
I was just saying, we pick and choose and we come and go, but we're lucky we're only about an hour away. And so for, the Iowans in the chat, because I know that, some of you are from probably more than an hour away from Grinnell. And so that makes it less convenient to come and go. I would still try to come for whatever portion, feels good for your family, at least once while they're there. And maybe all 4 years if you can swing it. Definitely do come.
Great.
And if you are coming for that weekend, there will be on Friday a panel that you'll probably see the 3 of us here, the Parents and Families Leadership Council, and love for, it's a little more opportunity. I think, like John was saying, learning some stuff about sometimes calendar in advance or things like that. I call it just sort of seeing how the engine runs underneath the hood. There's usually a parent speaker, admin speaker for if you join the council and things like that. So I would really seriously come and meet us in person if you're going to be there at that Parents Weekend, and really think about joining. I'm just going to use the acronym, the PFLC, the Parents, Family, and Leadership Council.
Great. All right, we had another question come in. It is, what is the transition like academically for each of your kids?
So, no, go, Robin, go.
Well, so it's interesting because it can really kind of vary. And certainly the experience was slightly different for both of my kids. So, my kids are products of the Iowa public school system, but they go to school in Iowa City, which some people may know, or some people may not know, the reputation of the Iowa City School District. And really we have one of the highest percentages of doctoral level individuals, in terms of concentration. So these are really, really smart kids. The expectations are high, the competition is high for a public school. And so they came in actually really well prepared academically, and felt like they were really well prepared to take on school. I think that our children were also like really receptive to our recommendation, which is treat school like a job and do not hesitate to go to office hours. Which they really did. That doesn't mean it was always easy. So our oldest, for his tutorial professor was my husband's academic advisor when he was at Grinnell, and she was really known for being very hard. And it was, I mean, he got his first bad grade ever, but really learned from that experience. But like, my husband loves to share the story of like he woke up or he was texting into the night with our son, and I woke up to a text of 100 unread messages about this grade and what was he going to do. And I mean, ultimately, we just, this is like the biggest piece of advice to give your kids about the academic transition is go to office hours, form a relationship with your professors.
100%.
That's one of the reasons you're going to Grinnell College, is because that is there for them. And that will just ease the transition if they can do that.
I mean, I will say our son academically, I think it was an easy enough transition. I think one thing that was difficult is kind of time management, because when your kid is home and they're in high school, you see if they're doing their homework or they're watching TV. And I think, it varies kid to kid. Our son didn't always schedule his time well enough and ended up, going up against deadlines a lot. And I think the other advice about taking advantage of office hours, asking teachers if they can submit a paper again. Or our son did poorly on a test and went in and had a conversation with his teacher about what he missed, not so much kind of like which questions, but thematically, and it completely turned his grade around. He ended up getting an A in the class because he had that conversation. I think some kids in a high school environment, you might see that teacher, every day. It might be a small school. In college, it might be a little bit different, but absolutely the kid, in terms of setting up a schedule and being proactive about having a relationship with a teacher, taking advantage of office hours. And if they do poorly, ask why, rather than just, not to challenge the grade, but see what they can learn from it. I have told both my kids, professors generally love it if their students come in and have a conversation about the class and about a topic. And I think kids tend to be nervous about that idea. I just say, encourage your kids to develop that kind of relationship. I don't know if Robin or Susan said it or both, but it's incredibly important. And I think that's where it's a little bit different from high school.
Yeah. That's what, like I said, that's why you're at Grinnell. And there are other resources available absolutely to students. So if they need help with their writing, encourage your kid to take advantage of everything Grinnell is offering them in terms of support. Some kids are going to be more easily encouraged to do that than others, I know, but it's all there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going to go back to Henry's thing. I think my kids, because of like that COVID thing, I think socially probably that was just a little bit more challenging than the academic transition. I guess maybe in the sense of then just trying to figure out how you balance the social, which had been like just such a paucity of it because of, whatever, studying at home and all that other stuff. So, but there are so many resources and they really should take advantage of as many of them as they can.
So I'm going back to a question that I saw in the chat. I don't know if any of your kids are involved in music programs, but there's a question about how competitive the music programs are, because one parent has a daughter who is intending on auditioning for the orchestra.
I cannot speak to that. I'm trying to think if my son knows anybody who is performing.
John, were any of your kids in music? Yeah. So my kids didn't play in orchestra, but my but they are and have been involved in music. So my son Julian takes euphonium lessons and for academic credit. And his brother really encouraged him to do that. He took vocal music lessons for academic credit. It's a lovely way of getting some academic credit and allows them to still be involved in the music world. We used to drive over to Grinnell to like see our son's vocal music performance every spring and loved doing that and listening to the other students who sang. So there are certainly a wide variety of musical opportunities that have different time requirements. My son's girlfriend played in the orchestra. She's a very talented violinist. But I don't think that I ever heard that like it was, a huge drag on her time. It was a good social opportunity. I think that anybody who wants to play can play. And I think there may actually be individuals from the community in some of the music groups. Jillian is nodding.
Yes.
So, because we did go to at least one of her orchestra performances, maybe a couple of, maybe more than one, because we've known her for a very long time. And so enjoyed attending those. So I would say your kid should practice to whatever degree they like to practice because they love it. But otherwise, they should make sure that music is, supplemental and a wonderful part of like being a well-rounded, typical Grinnellian who does lots of things, and they can perform at a high level, or they can just practice and maybe get some credits. So they should do it because they love it.
And Robin, if I'm not mistaken, like lessons are open to anybody, correct?
Yeah. So my son Julian, because this is the kind of kid he is, he's going to take banjo. So okay. I'm glad he's doing it.
And you take it, I think, like what, over the course of the semester?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's amazing opportunity. I'm not aware
of
any other school that does it. Yeah.
I think there are other schools that do it. McAllister College in Minnesota, you can take bagpipe lessons, right? But I think that the opportunities at Grinnell are terrific in terms of music.
Great, thank you. So now we have a question related to new student orientation. And the question is, what can be expected for move-in day? Because it looks like things start at 8 a.m. on August 22nd.
My advice, get there first, because some dorms have better corners than others. Our son's first year, he got there second, and the other kid had a better angle in his bed. I don't know. I mean, the one piece of advice I would have for move-in day, the furniture is very modular. Have your kid look at other rooms, because kids will come up with really interesting ways to arrange the beds and the desks and the furniture, and some may never occur to you. And it's a little Tetris-y the way they figured it out. And we had the room set up the way we thought would be a great idea. And Henry and his roommate went and looked at some other rooms, and we moved everything around because other people had a different setup. So I just don't have a flexible idea of how the room can get set up, and getting there early, I don't know. It doesn't really matter that much. But in this one room in his first year, there was a better side than the other. But do look at other rooms in their configurations, because the kids can come up with really creative solutions, and everything pretty much moves around. And if you can't move it, there's generally staff around to help.
Yes, it's not necessarily bad to have like a little, like send your kid with a little toolkit when they go to school, especially for things like that. Look, my son had 2 roommates his first year, and they did not end up making moves, but they did have a conversation at the beginning that at the beginning of the spring semester, they would revisit if they wanted to reconfigure where everybody was sleeping. They ended up not doing that. And my daughter did the same thing. She actually waited for her roommate to show up, and then they picked where they were going to be. But I'm a little bit in the John camp that early tends to be better.
Great.
I saw a question about dimensions. I think the beds are all twin extra longs.
Yeah.
There's no other dimension that matters.
Yeah.
Great. Have any of your children started learning a new language at Grinnell? Maybe one they were familiar with before? If so, how was that experience for them? No?
No.
Okay.
No.
Our son went to Denmark, and part of the study abroad is he had to learn a little Danish, and I will say he learned a little Danish, but he did not study a language. For kids who are studying a language, though, if you are studying abroad, you can obviously go to a country in whose language you're studying, and that can be incredibly beneficial to have that kind of immersion.
Okay.
So I think my kids took, or my son Quinn took Spanish, but he had already taken Spanish. But I will say, like, many years ago when I was at Grinnell, it was not uncommon to explore a new language that you hadn't studied before, because there are so many because there will be language opportunities that maybe weren't available to your student in their high school. And so most of the people will be new learners. I remember a woman on my floor who was learning Chinese, and it was really fun to like listen to her learn Chinese. I took German, so I think there's just a lot of opportunities that they shouldn't hesitate at all to do it.
All right, so we have a question. We're going to go back and visit fall break. Amy has a son who is going to be playing soccer and will not be able to go home for fall break. And she's wondering what campus is like during the break from classes.
So our son has been back and forth between break. He's never spent the whole break in New York, and he's never spent the whole break on campus. There are a lot of people who do not go home. It is expensive to go home. People are in sports and they do not go home. People live in all different regions of the world and they do not go home. So classes are not in session, but people are there. Not as many people are there when school is in session, but it's not completely empty.
All right. I'm just scrolling through here.
I saw one other question about bed height. It really depends on how the kids are going to set up their rooms. The one thing we didn't buy until we got there was underbed storage, because there's so many variables. And then you can get that either at Amazon or Walmart. No, the Walmart in Grinnell does not have a lot. But anyway, storage under the bed, it really depends on the configuration of the room. And it can vary from like, a couple of inches to a couple of feet.
Great. Thank you, John. So we've been talking a lot about the academic side of things. Let's switch gears and talk about career services. Will you share how Grinnell's Career Services and Post-Grad Success Office has been for your children?
I feel like I answered this question every time it comes up in various settings, because one thing that I think is like so different about Grinnell is the way in which like career services has just exploded. It was like this tiny little room in Mears Cottage when I was there, and now it's this whole building with like so many resources for students. Getting them suits and practicing interviews if they're, maybe interviewing for like a Watson or something. And I will say, like, from our personal experience has been really good. Our son Julian has maybe used it a little bit, but he's only entering his second year. Our son Quinn is entering his third year of law school, and I will say he definitely like went into career services, talked with the people that were there providing supports for advising on law schools and interviewing and LSAT prep. and he had a really, good experience with that. And so I just feel like that's something that is definitely one of the highlights of what's different about Grinnell from our own experience. And it's definitely something like to absolutely encourage your kids to take advantage of, because they have really wonderful resources.
It's very student driven. So your student really is the driver on that. And I believe they're assigned somebody soon after their arrival at Grinnell. So they have like a touch point. Yeah. But they're the ones who drive it. I do think that the center offers like different speakers, people who talk about different fields that Grinnellians go into after graduation and stuff like that, along with people wanting to hear about law school, business school, med school, other sort of professional and academic postgraduate or post undergraduate programs. But your student really needs to get in there.
Right. All right. We're gonna go back to thinking about what students need to bring when they move to campus. So we have a question. Do most kids have refrigerators, microwaves, rugs, blackout curtains, etc. in their room? What else? Like, was there some item that you're like, oh, yes, this was really helpful for my child when they moved into a dorm room?
Mini vacuum or dustbuster, huge necessity. I don't know if you can have a microwave. Certainly mini fridges, instant hot water pots, I think you've had. I don't think my son has ever had a microwave. But
I think the microwave is in the kitchen on the floor.
It's in the kitchen room. So and the curtains are pretty good. I mean, I don't remember blackout curtains, but I think our son has always had an instant hot water pot. I think he's had a mini fridge, or his roommate has. And then if if one of the two doesn't have a vacuum or a dustbuster, get one, because those rooms get dirty quickly.
Yeah, definitely fridge. The kitchen has the microwave, and Grinnell will feed them well. What else? Maybe a rug, but I don't know. That tends to be more my daughter's thing than my son's. Things that like I sent my son with. He has a pillow with his dog on it, and he's really loved having that. And it makes me very happy that like I sent him off with that. Otherwise, I think my biggest message is like it's really important to communicate with your roommate ahead on who's going to bring what, so that you don't wind up with two fridges. And so make sure that they're communicating with each other. And if it's been forgotten or nobody has it, we've got stores in Iowa. Walmart's right down the road. It's all fine.
Yeah, totally. I think less is more. I mean, like our son did arrive with like his bed linens and all that stuff, so it could be washed and dried and all those kinds of things. But he did not go necessarily with a ton in order to see like what the room configuration would be and maybe what other roommates would be bringing to figure that out. So I would really strongly encourage, if your children are able to do that with the roommate, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to tell you, I have seen vans pull in towing U-Haul trailers for move-in. And this is like new student orientation. It's not like maybe a kid's moving into an apartment and it's unfurnished. So, some of the rooms are like plenty size, and others aren't. So you also don't want to like have so much that the kid can't even move around the room or whatever.
Not really an electronic item, but a clothing piece. I mean, our kid grew up in Pasadena, California, would not use the cold weather. Carhartt insulated pants. Probably the best item of clothing I've ever bought him. He had every jacket. Also, their USB rechargeable hand warmers that he loved. But the insulated pants from Carhartt, it's like they make kind of construction stuff. They're so good. I bought a pair myself. Yeah, male, female, I don't care. Those are some of the best pants I've ever had, and it literally saved my son's winter because they're so cozy.
Jillian, there's sort of two questions there. Maybe, do you mind if we just hop in and answer them that just popped up? Are students required to take their belongings home? Yes, they are. There are storage. There is a storage service that they can use, and our son has done that 2 years. But yes, they are required to take their belongings home or make arrangements for storage, which can, involve like making sure their stuff is in a suitcase or a bin or something. You can't just leave a room that's unpacked and think that's going to be taken care of. And I say that because I've seen that. The variety of the food in the cafeteria, I think, Robin, you even speak better over the course of time. Like, there are lots of different food stations reflecting also the variety of students who are at Grinnell. So, my son is, his kind of favorite thing is to go in there and make a salad, get some, roast chicken. There's some kimchi, and he feels like he is totally set. He's got himself a good meal. So there is both variety in terms of, let's just say, like, what you might see in a more traditional setting, as well as cuisines from other parts of the world.
Yeah, certainly accommodate a variety of dietary needs and restrictions. And I'll say I think the food just keeps getting better and better at Grinnell, over the decades. And plus, they also have the opportunity to use dining dollars in the community, which gets them out in the community. And there are some really good places to eat in Grinnell.
Yes, yeah, totally.
So I know we just have a couple minutes, and there was a question earlier about family weekend and the conflict with the football game. Robin, do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about that, because I think this is in that, like, the middle of everywhere article. They say, like, you can make any weekend family weekend, right? It doesn't have to be that one this year. So if there's a better time for you to come out, you'll have your pick of rooms in Hotel Grinnell, and you can not wait in line for the restaurants. And so, if there's a time that works well to come out and watch a home football game, goodness, come for a home football game. There will absolutely be other parents there. And so I just think you can make any weekend family weekend for yourselves. And there'll probably be another opportunity a different year. We go a lot, but not too much.
Somebody had a question about restaurants. Saints Rest, great coffee shop. The sandwich shop in it moved out. I'm not sure where they are. Grin City Bakery is amazing. Prairie Canary is okay. If you want really good food, you got to go to Des Moines. But
or Iowa City. We have. Actually, I would argue that there are probably some restaurants in Iowa City that are better than Des Moines. Des Moines is bigger.
And the bakery is second to none. The Grin City Bakery it's open like 3 mornings a week, but it's great.
Yeah. So the middle of everywhere article that I shared in there, we listed some restaurant recommendations. If people want to contact me for restaurant recommendations, I know certainly some good places in Des Moines because we go there not infrequently, but I definitely know the places in Iowa City. There are places in Iowa City that have been on a lot of New York Times best restaurants lists in recent years. So we've got some good options here.
Great. Well, we have come to the hour, and I'll just say I'm a native Iowan, and there are excellent restaurants between Des Moines and Iowa City, so I'll kind of even the score there. But thank you all for joining this evening. I just want to make sure to draw your attention to the chat that there is a Parents and Families Facebook group that is administered by parents, so that is also another wonderful resource to use to post questions and get answers from parents. In addition, I reposted the contact information for student life at Grinnell. JC shared that information earlier, so I posted again the email address and phone number. So thank you again all for joining. Thank you, Susan, Robin, and John for sharing your experiences and your students' experiences. We look forward to seeing you on campus here in just a few short weeks. But once again, thank you so much for joining us this evening.